If you had to name how you're able to honor what's important to you now versus what you had to deprioritize or was actively dishonored in corporate, what is it?
Well, corporate is always going to tell you that corporate's the most important. Corporate's always going to tell you that that ping, that Slack chat, that email, that partner, that whatever is the most important thing in that moment.
Mm,
And it is going to cause you to miss other things that you value. It just will. And if it hasn't yet, it will. Okay? That's just how it goes because it's a business. It's not a person. And so it doesn't have the same empathy and feeling and value that humans do, right? So like if there's a big launch coming up, or if the Olympics is happening in July and it just happens to also coincide with your mother's birthday, okay? The Olympics is happening. So it's you got to do it, Entrepreneurism makes you have to set different types of boundaries, but for one, entrepreneurism, you tell yourself what's the most important part of your own business. No one is dictating that for you. And I think that that's the biggest difference between corporate life and entrepreneurism.
Life's too short for bad coffee or bad leadership. I'm Lindsay Yellin, executive leadership coach, coffee enthusiast, and former ad VP turned believer in leading from a place of possibility. On Unfiltered Leadership, we skip the buzzwords and dig into the messy, human, and powerful side of leadership with real conversations and practical takeaways. Now grab your mug. Let's dive in. Hi, welcome back to Unfiltered Leadership. In all transparency, this is the first thing I'm recording since maternity leave, since having my baby Noah, and it feels really good to get back on the mic. Today's a short one. I'm just here to welcome you and introduce our conversation today. Today's guest is Angela. She's actually one of my closest friends here in California. She's someone that I first met years ago when working together at Digitas. Back then, neither of us could have imagined that more than a decade later, we'd both be living here on the California coast, building these purpose-driven businesses, living these more purpose-driven, aligned lives. And we talk a lot about that today. To introduce Angela, she is a mom. She's also an incredible artist, and she's the founder of Unpacka, which is a community-centered platform rooted in small business and sustainability and wearing clothing with intention. She is such a heart-driven leader and a woman, and it comes through in everything that she does. She's so values-aligned in every decision. She makes every relationship that she cultivates and nurtures and business that she supports and creates. So she's truly incredible. So in our conversation, we talk about leaving corporate. We talk about setting boundaries. We talk about finding your people and building something that actually really reflects your values. So grab your mug. Maybe it has some boobs on it. You'll get that once you start listening. And get unfiltered with Angela and I. Enjoy. Hi, Angela. I am so excited, everyone. Angela is here with us today. Welcome to Unfiltered Leadership.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Okay, and this is exciting because Angela's in my home. So this is last time I did a in-person one with my brother in his house. This time Angela so graciously came to our house and we were just talking about all the creative chaos in life right now and how she has walked straight into our chaos because we are like baby prepping and she's so graciously been tolerating it and expressing your own chaos.
Yeah, I mean, creativity and change is brewed from chaos, right? Like it's not brewed from everything being okay, everything being normal, or whatever that even means, right? It's brewed from this is a weird time, and you just sometimes gotta embrace the weird, and you gotta embrace the crap on your floor,
Uh-huh.
and you gotta embrace that you forgot about your kid's lunch, and you gotta just embrace it sometimes because it's just how it goes.
And I'm grateful to have friends like Angela who can come over and I don't have to worry about anything. I'm like, she's not going to judge me.
We don't.
So Angela's over here today, but I think we need to start. Angela, I want to hand the baton to you to tell us about our mugs today
Yeah.
and then what is in your mug. And this is a special story.
Yes. So I am the owner and founder of Unpacka.com. We're a designer resale site that also hosts a variety of local handmade artist goods. This is one of my favorite pieces. It is actually called the Angela because Jillian, the owner of Moonrise Pottery, actually designed it for me.
And describe it for folks not watching, too.
Okay, perfect. So
it deserves a really good
it's
descriptive.
got some really nice large bazunga titties on the front, and then it's got some lemons on the bottom here, and it's a very nice handle. It's really a beautiful mug. And her whole design and aesthetic is all about kind of how women are goddesses and embracing your own goddess energy. And so Lindsay also has a matching goddess energy mug. You can see she's got a couple wrinkles and stuff, which I love.
Uh-huh.
She's got some gold titties. And then on the back, she's got like a nice little booty.
She had a butt. So Angela gifted this to me. Angela's an incredible gift giver. She gifted this to me, I don't know, maybe it was a year ago. I don't remember.
Mhm.
Um,
Back.
and it's proudly in display in my bedroom, actually, because some of my most cherished mugs are in display, not always in use. But today we said we got to go goddess.
We had to go goddess mugs.
So if you're not watching, I recommend you do get onto YouTube and watch so you can just see these mugs. So share the artist one more time.
Yeah, it's Jillian. And her handle is moonrise.pottery on Instagram. Moonrise.pottery, or you can find her on unpacka.com. She, again, is a wonderful local handmade artist based out of Pacifica, California. My jewelry is also one of my artists. I'm like trying to really amp up the different folks on the site because I truly believe in local and sustainable and handmade in a time where everything is corporatized and fed to you. You know, try to shop small, try to shop local, try to shop secondhand. It's so important for our communities and our environment.
And I feel like that's a beautiful place to start because what I want to talk about first, Angela, and I think the story people deserve and should hear about you first is like the massive transition that you made in the last year. People are going to be listening to this. It's going to be in the new year, 2026, but here we are in 2025 and you've had a really big year.
Yeah.
And it's been such an honor to watch as you've made this transition, not just in practicality sense, and I want you to talk about it, but also like in just you embracing moving, like saying yes to building a business that is so values aligned for you, so purpose aligned for you, and something that you like is so heart driven. And that has been very inspiring for me. So will you share with folks your story and kind of where you are in all of it? And you talked a little bit about the purpose, like what you believe in, but it's very embodied in your business.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, it's really good to hear that, right? I mean, I think you always want to try to communicate what's inside your soul outward. But when you do that, sometimes when you release that kind of energy or when you tell people what's in here outside, people can really use that also kind of against you. So thank you for that. And I really appreciate that. But yeah, I started this business. I mean, I have been thrifting clothes forever. I was one of the first people I ever knew to use eBay. My college friends, if they're watching this podcast, will laugh because I used to be the girl that at our house or a dorm room or apartment, I would get all these random packages from eBay because I would literally buy my clothes off eBay, wear them, and then flip them. And
Wow, it went back that far?
It went back that
Oh,
far.
that is so cool.
I started in, I want to say it was probably about 2008. I don't know. Somebody out there is going to check my eBay history, but it's probably about 2008-ish that I started doing this. And so from there, it's always been kind of a hobby for me. And then I was pregnant with my son, my second son. I have 3 kids. So my eldest child is 5. He was a COVID baby. My second child is 4. And then my last child, Layla, is 2. And it was during my second child that I was on maternity leave. And I was kind of starting to feel a little bit overwhelmed with work. It was starting to change. The culture was starting to change at Google.
Can you kind of share what you did? Like what?
Yeah. I was a program manager on TV. Worked with some absolutely fantastic and wonderful people. But, you know, it's just, it's a lot. And TV is a pretty 24/7 business. And a 24/7 business model. And I was kind of like, you know what? I don't know that I can do this forever. I don't know how long I can do this, but I was starting to see the writing on the wall for myself that if I was going to continue here, you know, things were going to need to change. Like I was going to have to set some different boundaries with children because I wasn't going to be able to continue to survive the way I had been without kids. And so I was thinking through that, right, from a business lens. And in the meantime, I was like, you know what? I've always had this kind of side energy. Let's build something here too. So I started a little Poshmark, started flipping some clothes. That's kind of how it began. And I've been very involved with the community in Pacifica. Shout out to Golden Soul. She was the first person that let me pop up at her restaurant. But, you know, and I started kind of growing from there. I started learning different trends, started learning what people liked, and it started feeling really good because I was getting out in the community. And I met all these other entrepreneurs and people who handcraft and make their own stuff. And one of the biggest things that they struggle with is e-commerce and online presence, because it is complicated. E-commerce is really, really, really complicated. There's so much out there, and there's so many things people are telling you to buy, and so many different ways to
Oh my
sell,
God. Yes.
and it's really overwhelming. And when you're a small business owner, you can't spend $40 a month on an e-commerce site. You can't spend $8 a month on a Google Workspace. Like, there's a lot of different things. Not to mention, like, some of these people don't come from a tech background. They don't even know what that means.
Yep.
And so the barrier to entry is large. And I started thinking, what could I do to support these people and like actually give us all a platform that feels really, really good to be a part of and also gives back to the community. Because at the end of the day, maybe this is controversial, but I really think being a billionaire is a little bit gross. And I do think that it's really important for us to see each other and recognize each other and build together.
Mm-hmm. And what have you noticed since you've leaned into that, like into the community? What's been the response?
It's been amazing. I mean, I think in a time of AI, when everything feels fake, everything feels manipulated, everything feels unreal, in a time of layoffs where everyone feels really lonely and disjointed and confused and
Yes.
unsure, right?
Mm-hmm.
Meeting up with someone face to face, going to a gathering, going to a coffee shop and just saying hello to whoever's there. It makes you realize you're not alone.
Yeah.
And it's that type of energy that refills your cup more than anything else.
It's just like a reminder of the humanity that's out there, because I think what is so beautiful what you're doing, and just so folks know, like you launched Unpacka September?
And
October?
end of October.
So it is like officially out into the world. So you left corporate in July and then moved and been like heads down, busting your ass to get Unpacka live. So it's now live, just to like bring that. But I want to talk a little more about that transition in a bit. I think it's so easy in our day right now, and like getting lost in our phones and feeling uncertain and lonely and all this. Like the more you're looking down and scrolling, the more, of course, the more isolating it is. But I think it's also disconnects you from the real heart of humanity, even though you're seeing so much humanity. And you're seeing beautiful things, like the amount of things I watch on like wonderful people with foster dogs and like, lovely things. I'm like, oh, there's such good people out there. But it is nothing in comparison to just being with people. And like, I learned that from the coffee shop of like the difference it made of just seeing the same people every week, hearing the updates in their lives, being the person to ask them how their day is. Because I don't know if anybody else is asking them, how's your day today? How are you? What happened with that job you're interviewing for? How's your daughter? How's your son? What are you doing this weekend? How's your dog? Like, it's a chance that I could have been the only person that they're kind of having that type of in-person, in-face conversation with, maybe all day. And it just makes such a huge difference that I think we have come to underappreciate, because it has become so like second star, I guess.
Yeah, and also I feel like because we're starting to see more people embrace online and embrace communities online, which is a positive and negative connotation too, right? Like I'm not going to sit here and also disparage online communities. I think a lot of those things can be very real relationships. In fact, I've made a ton of friends through Poshmark that have become actually very real friends. I'm wearing a bracelet by Lemon Cake. Actually, she's become one of my friends. She lives in Pennsylvania. We've never met. So, you can really make real connections too through online, but I don't think that ever will replace a face-to-face conversation, even like we're having right now, right? Like nothing replaces feeling that actual energy that's in the room.
Yeah. And what so I think there's something unique about what you're doing with Unpacka, which is you're trying to keep it local. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So one of the things that I really want to do is I really want to make sure that every piece and element that we have on the site really feels intentional. Like the whole purpose of Unpacka is like our little hashtag or slogan or whatever you want to call it, secondhand thing. I don't know. not
marketing jargon thing that comes after the name.
Yeah, I'm really, shout out to you if I have a marketing degree, but here we are. Can't remember the name of that. But it's called, it's intentionally worn. It's kind of a double entendre there because secondhand clothing is worn. But we really believe in that. And when you have handmade goods, when you have something that's going through local commerce, when you have something that has had love before, there's a vibe to that. There's an energy to that you can't replace with literally anything else. I personally feel. So we're right now we're in the Bay Area.
Mm-hmm.
All of our artists are local to the Bay Area.
But people can buy it from anywhere.
People can buy it from anywhere. We're going to be expanding to Chicago artists and Seattle artists next year. So if you are in the Chicago or Seattle area and you are a maker and you're small and you want to be an Unpacka artist, please reach out to us. It's info@unpacka.com. I would be more than happy to chat with you about how we make sure that our artists get set up and seen. We pay for all the marketing and stuff for you. We basically just wholesale agreement with you and we go from there. But we bring you to all of our shows. I'm doing Sip Shop Eat this weekend. So all of my featured artists will be there. I'm going to bring all their stuff. You don't have to come with me, but I will be bringing all your stuff and helping showcase it for you. Because I know that those pop-ups are expensive. I mean, the fee for Sip Shop Eat, as example, a 5x10 space is $400. It doesn't include lighting, doesn't include Wi-Fi, doesn't include chairs, tables.
You have to bring your
tents,
whole setup. I know.
Everything. And it, for a very, very small business, you can't do that. So,
yeah. And so with your transition from corporate, because you're talking everything you talk about, like I said before, is so values aligned. Like everything you're talking about with your business, how you are supporting community, what the opportunity and visibility and revenue that you're trying to create for makers. There's such a clear through line. So what was it like going, when you were in corporate, what values did you find for yourself were really challenged or dishonored? And what are you noticing now that you're in a business of your making that you can embrace that a little differently?
I love it. Now we're getting into the tough questions, folks. We're at the tough question part of the podcast. I'm going to turn and ask you the same question back at the end of this, by the way, because I think that this is really a great question. When I first started at Google, it felt like a very different company. Google was kind of the bastion out here of creative tech, I would say. If you were kind of a creative, a little bit out there dreamer kind of a vibe, Google was the spot for you. And it felt very that way.
And how long ago was that?
I got hired in 2016.
Yeah. Okay.
And
because you got hired, you went right when I went to London.
Yes. Lindsay and I used to work together.
And at Digitas, we worked in advertising. And I meant to bring that up before, so I would do a quick interlude. So Angela and I met both working at Digitas. She was head of culture, shocking, which is I thought the most badass job. And I was the kind of person who just really just wanted to be in culture. So I just did all these culture clubs and stuff.
You were amazing.
With you.
You were fantastic.
We did a volunteer one. I started a volunteer club, but we spent a lot of time together.
We did.
And then I was leaving to go transfer to London. And at the same time, Angela was leaving and got this great new job going out to California. Did you move to California then?
We moved to California for that job. Yeah. It was kind of a crazy experience because literally the same day at Digitas, I got offered to help expand my team. And I got the job offer to move to California to work for Google. And it was oh. I went home and I literally said to Dan, I'm like, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? Do you want to pick up our entire life? Our entire family lives in Illinois / the Midwest kind of area. Do you want to just pick up and go to California? Or should I stay here and build out my team? And he was like, you know what? I think I might be able to transfer. At the time, he had kind of started leaning into some of the music stuff. My husband's a musician. And he's like, you know what? I think there's gonna be a little bit more opportunity out there for California. We can always come back. And so we did it. So I accepted my job offer in 2016 and I moved out here. I started in HR. I was a sourcer for SREs, which is site reliability engineering. They're the people that are responsible for keeping Gmail and all your favorite applications up and running. Congratulations to them. They are some badass human beings, dude. They are some of the smartest, most talented people out there. The stuff that they can accomplish is wild.
And we need them.
And you know what? That's a lot of the people I met at Google. I mean, I'd say 98% of the people I've met and worked with at Google are some of the most fantastic, wonderful, smart, talented human beings on the face of the earth. And really have changed the course of my career. Many of them have become personal friends. And there's that 2%. So, and then there's 2%. And I think that goes back to your original question, The 2% are the ones that challenge you, and they make you feel things. And, sometimes you gotta lean into those feelings. They're the people that, their values don't align with your values. They're the ones that for me, okay, again, I
Mm-hmm.
speak for myself. I am a very positively minded person. I appreciate when people want to engage, when people are excited about something, when we're all working together on a goal. I am not a very competitive person. I personally do not like corporate politics. I've always kind of hated it. I'm not someone who's ever wanted to climb the ladder and screw the other guy. But
I
that type of stuff really bothers me. And Google has become, as it grows, for better or for worse, has become a little bit more consultancy like.
Yeah.
And with that comes kind of a different energy than that original kind of creative, chaotic energy, right? Consultants by nature are a lot more organized, structured, detail oriented, and so those two things are at odds, which can be a beautiful thing
Sure.
because you do have to design within constraints and then you build beautiful products. But it can also be a very difficult thing because when you put too many constraints on, it squeezes out that beautiful energy that really made it something special to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a really, really fine balance. But I was kind of finding towards the end of my career that there were a few people that really were making it difficult to find that creative spark that made you want to come in every day. And so, you have to kind of go with that gut feeling.
And I'm curious because I know a little bit, like we've been chatting through the whole time, so like I
Yeah.
have a little bit behind the scenes. But how much also, like I kind of was not just like the 2% of the people, but also the shift of the culture of the company.
Yeah.
Like after some of those initial big layoffs, I think was that at the start of was it the start of last year or
It
the year
was the
before?
start of 2021, I believe. No, maybe
No,
2022. I don't know.
I don't
Years
know. A couple of years ago.
post COVID is like, boop.
One thing. But I just remember, like, of course, I hear from my clients
Yeah.
and um, being in the world with corporate leaders, like hearing the fear, the uncertainty, but also kind of like the shock of, oh, wow, like I knew it was business, it was always business,
Right.
but I never felt like this before. This and like this like need or feeling to like detach
Yeah.
of like, oh, because all these great people
Yeah.
were just names on a page that were taken away for no real rationale that changed my whole perception of the company and what my value, my role in the company. So what was that like for you?
The burnout's real. I mean, the burnout's real, and the survivor's guilt, if you've
Yeah.
ever been on a team that got laid off, is also really real. I was on an HR team, and I had transitioned over to YouTube TV. Shout out to Ben Morris for hiring me. He's a great guy. He currently lives now in Europe, and he's the CEO of a different company. But I moved and transitioned from HR over to TV. And after doing that about a year and a half in, almost my entire team on HR got laid off. And it was
Wow.
really weird. It was weird to see all the little bubbles that you were used to pinging on the G chat, just turn to like a little icon with a slash through it.
Oh my God.
And that's like it's like oof,
Oh, that's
and
crazy.
it makes you feel like something. You're like, oh man, like and that type of thing is really impacting to everyone, and people respond different ways, right? Some people lean into that and say, oh well, moving on, and some people get like myself who likes interpersonal connection and thrives off of talking with people. It's like, man, we're in a different space than we used to be.
Yep.
So I guess kind of leading myself a little bit here. You didn't ask this question, but I do think like if you're thinking about leaving corporate, I do think that there's a few things that you should have on your checklist. One is truly envisioning what you want out of your life. And I don't mean like bullshit envisioning. I mean like go to your lowest of low levels and say like what do I truly care about? For me that was my kids. For me that was running a small business. I didn't just want to be solely a stay-at-home mom. I wanted to still work. But I kind of knew that I needed a break from corporate experience. And so trying to figure out then with my husband, because I am married, what did that look like? And sitting down with your partner and figuring, like having a real chat. I mean, financially, health insurance if you live in the United States, childcare if you have young children like I do. I mean, there's a lot of different things to talk about before you can really quit your job in a responsible way, so you don't re-stress yourself out once you leave. But I would recommend anyone who's feeling like they're just ready to maybe jump to entrepreneurism. Yeah, I feel like you should do this at least once in your life because
Yeah.
it really is a beautiful experience. It's a hard experience, but it's a really beautiful experience as well.
So what are those? And you're right. It's like,
Because you've done this too, right?
yes.
Yeah.
And I think there's a couple of threads I want to pull what you said, but I want to stick with the first one first. If you had to name like what is available to you now or how you're able to honor what's important to you now versus what you had to deprioritize or was actively dishonored in corporate, what is it?
Well, corporate is always going to tell you that corporate's the most important. Corporate's always going to tell you that that ping, that Slack chat, that email, that partner, that whatever is the most important thing in that moment.
Mm,
And it is going to cause you to miss other things that you value. It just will. And if it hasn't yet, it will. Okay? That's just how it goes because it's a business. It's not a person. And so it doesn't have the same empathy and feeling and value that humans do, right? So like if there's a big launch coming up or if the Olympics is happening in July and it just happens to also coincide with your mother's birthday, okay? The Olympics is happening. So it's you got to do it, And so it's that type of thing that, you just have to you're going to go through a period of where maybe you didn't set your boundaries correctly. And corporate, I think, helps you realize where you may or may not be setting your boundaries correctly. And entrepreneurism makes you have to set different types of boundaries. But for one, entrepreneurism, you tell yourself what's the most important part of your own business. No one is dictating that for you. And I think that that's the biggest difference between corporate life and entrepreneurism.
yeah, I think that's really beautifully said. I'll say one thing in my experience, one thing I struggled with was first off, like a big value of mine at the time when transitioning, and still important now, but has just shifted because our values change as we do, was around like freedom and independence.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of, I did have some nice, like, there are ways that freedom was honored in my job. I had an incredible boss at the time. Like, we were then working remote. Like, there were things that, you could say. But the reality is, like, I didn't have the freedom to spend my time on what I felt like I could have the greatest impact on.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I was feeling that pull and that corporate pull. They'll tell you what's most important. And I'll never forget, this is kind of when the light bulb went on for me, I guess, is in London when going to that office and realizing they had very little value in people and building people and retaining talent and culture. It was all about revenue. It was all about that. And so I had to learn very quickly in order to be valuable, in order to grow, in order to be noticed, in order for my team to be successful, I had to make the most important thing revenue. And so I had to change the way I talked. I had to change the way how I spent my time. And I still would make time to build the culture of a team and, do what I love to do, but it had to be second or it couldn't be loud. It had to be quiet because they didn't value that. And that's like, it was a big values misalignment from even just being in the Chicago office that I was like, oh, I get this now. And there's a reason why I only stayed a year and a half. And a big part of it was that because how I wanted to spend my time and grow myself and my leadership was not in that way. I learned a lot from it. Fast forward, I go back. And that shift is starting to was starting to happen everywhere. We're still continuing to see it, right? Like in this day and age, it feels like empathy and people stuff is like easily being able to be deprioritized with little rationale. But that became a really big aha for me that I was like, I can continue to climb this ladder.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to continue to spend more and more time on things that are actually taking me further away from the leader I want to be, from the purpose I want to honor, and the impact I want to have that I know is like more my secret sauce versus just being good at it and like being successful. And then now being in my own business and coaching and building, having conversations like this and facilitation, I can like every day I'm able to close and say, oh, today I had the type of impact. I was able to spend my time connecting with people and sharing messages and lessons and ahas that make me feel like I'm having the right type of impact on the world, honoring my core values.
I second that. And I also think that leaders nowadays, one of the things I've seen is leaders are confusing having empathy with having apathy. And that's,
Tell me more about that.
so remember we were talking about burnout?
Yeah.
Your leaders are burned out too.
Yep.
Okay. I think the higher you climb the ladder at whatever job you're at, you realize the people above you are also one, just people, and two, they also have no idea what's going on. Like, like
They're
that's the
also
reality.
as scared and uncertain
They're
and
also
like
just- they're human beings, and they're dealing with their own shit just like you are. They have stuff going on at home. They have things going on at work. They're also swearing at that Slack chat that they also didn't want to get. Like, it's the same. They're doing the same thing, and so. But the difference between the people who are, lower levels versus the people who are in upper levels is that you still need to show up in a different way because you are the level you are. And where people are missing that is they're taking what used to be an empathetic point of view and driving with empathy. And Carrie Jacobs, somebody you should totally have on this podcast. She's an amazing human being. Used to work at Google. Shout out to Carrie. She has an amazing, amazing talk about leading with empathy and what that actually means. So I'm not going to steal her thunder.
okay.
But one of the things that she does talk about is how, really leading with empathy is truly understanding the other person. And when you're leading with apathy, what you're saying is, I don't care. You're going to show up to the panel and you're going to say you care about women. You're going to show up to the panel and you're going to say you care about increasing people's careers. You're going to say like, oh, I believe in this or that or the other thing. But then when push comes to shove or things get really hard or somebody complains about somebody within the department or whatever the case might be, you gaslight or you avoid or
Yep.
you just don't care because you're burned out yourself. And frankly, that I've seen a lot of that lately. And it's not to fault people because, again, we are all exhausted. And if you work in a corporate environment, again, your leaders are exhausted too. But I would say then maybe you need to do a discovery in yourself and figure out maybe if there's something else you should be doing too.
Yeah, I think that's, and I wanted to build on that. I think it's the apathy as well as like, I think the fear fuels some of that apathy too, because it's like right now with the environment, incorporate the environment in the job market, I think people are compromising their values, their integrity in order for safety because we're wired to always choose safety. Like that's like our natural instinct. And so when it comes for like standing up to things or fighting, it's like you're burned out, you're exhausted. So the apathy is real, but also there's real risk involved in there. So there's not much motivating you to perhaps go against the grain or stand up for something or someone in a way that maybe you would have before because you felt more secure or you felt there was, more at stake. And I think that's very real too. And that's why I just think there's a lot of behaviors going on in leadership in corporate that is like very hard to watch and having very, very real consequences in how people are feeling showing up in the work every day, how people are able to lead every day. And I hear this from my leaders that I talk to, and they're just like, how do I continue to show up and motivate when I feel so demotivated myself?
Yep.
How do I do that? That's like probably one of the number one questions I get from execs right now. And so that's a whole other thing. But I think it's just very, very real. And I am very proud to be on the other side to be able to help people work through that and also feel privileged in a way that I'm not still in corporate navigating that because it would be just as hard for me as it is for everybody else.
Yeah.
To put your values in question that way of how do I continue to keep myself safe and sane and present and try to do good work because people really truly do care about the work they do and the people when I have so much working against me and my team is crumbling.
Absolutely. And, I had a high school teacher once and he actually said the opposite of love isn't hate, it's fear. And you can't love something that you're afraid of. And if you're having that type of reaction at your job, regardless of your level, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And I think that comes a little bit from a place of privilege, which is why I'm also couching that in, if you're thinking about leaving your job, there's a lot of factors. I mean, you have, especially if you live in the Bay Area like we do, I mean, you have to save up a significant amount of money
Yeah.
to figure out how to, and if you're going to be an entrepreneur as well, you have to figure out how you're going to make that work. You have to have a pretty watertight business plan, and you have to, pretty much understand what you're getting into before you make that leap. But does that make it not worth doing? No. I fully and completely think that my life has drastically changed since July. It's incredible. Lindsay's life is about to drastically change here
A
in
very
a
different
couple of
way.
weeks in a different way.
Oh,
But,
God.
it's those changes and embracing those changes that I think makes a really well-rounded life. It
Mhm.
makes you a really interesting person and makes you a better leader, a more empathetic leader. Because then when somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, I just had a baby and I was nursing and now I need to change my shirt and I can't attend to this call," you can be like, "Right on, girl, I got you." Or, "Hey, last night was really tough for me. I got into a fight with a parent." Or, "Hey, this deadline just feels way too close. Like, I feel like we got to communicate this to a partner." Or whatever the case might be, you're better able to navigate that or those situations because you've been through them even yourself.
Yeah. I think there's to build on the fear like opposite of love, which is really, really brilliant. And um it doesn't also have to be like if you find yourself in a very fear driven place, and I talk about this a lot because I talk a lot about choosing possibility over fear.
Yep.
Um and I think that's very tightly connected to,
Yeah.
opposite of fear is love. And I like it doesn't have to be like always like a drastic jump.
No.
If it is entrepreneurship feeling right for you,
Yeah.
that is that is an incredible. I mean, you're looking at two people who have done it and wouldn't look back. So 100%. But sometimes people are so frozen by fear that thinking about trying to take all those steps or doing that is so overwhelming that it makes it
Yeah.
even worse. And what I want folks to take away from this conversation is that you do have agency and choice. And there's a lot that you can do to alleviate the fear and the uncertainty that you might not realize that you have. And some people think, I have to just leave. I just have to get out. For some people, they do. But often, what it can look like is actually just kind of confronting and taking time to process what it is that you are going through. What is it that's triggering the fear, the dysregulation, the uncertainty, the feeling devalued? Like, what is it that is actually contributing to your current situation at your current place of work? And once you start to understand things and name things, what are the values being dishonored? What is the purpose that you actually want to have? Where is the impact that you want to have that you're not allowed to? Where is the burnout coming from? All of these things,
Yeah.
you can start to get pieces of yourself back. And from that place, then the clarity can come. And then it can be like, oh, I can build a plan, have that conversation with my husband or my partner or my spouse to start this business. I can create the capacity to do it on the side to build to that. Or I now have the confidence and the capacity to start to interview for other places or have a conversation about going part-time. So
Totally.
just wanting to give people the permission to take that first step, because sometimes there's so much uncertainty that clarity just feels impossible. But just do the next right thing, which starts with self-appreciation, self-compassion, self-awareness. And through that, it can make wonders.
Yeah, there's a old program management saying that goes like a dream without a goal is just a wish. And so when you think about what you're dreaming about, what do you daydream about at work? Like what is it that you're like, man, if only I could be doing this. And then, incremental little steps, like put a little Gantt chart together that has like your actual no, for
Okay,
real,
PM.
your own personal stuff in a little Gantt chart, and just see like, okay, if I get all of this done by next week, okay, well, maybe I'm onto something. And kind of having that mentality of incremental steps make large progress, you know,
Mhm.
design and iterate. That's how you get stuff done.
I tell people a lot who, and I myself this too, who are working towards either a big thing. Like I'll say my best friend left her, I guess, corporate job, like bigger business job, to do her own floral company. Um, Shout out to Ann and Rose. And so she was like getting overwhelmed by like starting off her business and thinking about, am I not going back? Like
Yeah.
not going, she took like a sabbatical, not going back and going into my business.
Yeah.
And, I could sense that overwhelm. And I understood I had it when I was starting to think, do I actually go into my full coaching full time? Like, is this safe? Like, what do I do? Like, it just felt very overwhelming. And I just love the saying of like, just do the next right thing. You don't need to have 10 steps planned out and know all those answers yet.
Totally.
You can have the path forward of things that need to get done, or you can kind of have a sense of like, of course, where you're going or what success looks like, but you don't have to have all the answers yet. What is like the next right thing? The next right thing might be putting together something, like putting together a Gantt chart because you want that organization. Next right thing could be hiring a coach. Next right thing could be sitting down with somebody who's done this before. Next right thing could just be giving yourself permission to dream of what it is that you wish you could be spending your time. So just focusing on what is the next right
Next right thing.
thing.
Yeah. And if you have a partner, also leaning and talking to your partner, I do, or a best friend if you're not partnered or whoever, somebody that you trust that knows you really well can also really help you focus that down. I'm very fortunate. My husband is also a wild creative like myself. He's extremely smart and very talented. He's an engineer at Google as well. We actually worked on the same team for a really long time,
Which is crazy
which
to
is
me.
crazy. He still works there, and yeah, and he's also a musician. We also have 3 children. We don't have family out here. We moved, so we live in California together. I had been running this small business and also working full time. So, having those conversations and sit downs to kind of help refine what it is that you really want with somebody you trust is also so vastly important. And also hearing from them how they feel and what life might be like when you make kind of these larger jumps. That's also really something good to take into account.
And that was the other thread I wanted to pull on from earlier when you mentioned this. Like, so, okay, another fun fact. I knew Dan before Angela. Dan, Angela's husband, worked at my first agency I ever worked at. He was like an account person, which is so funny because now is
Yeah,
engineering
and we didn't
musician.
know each other. We
We
didn't
didn't know. I
meet.
didn't know. We
We didn't
didn't
meet
know.
while they worked together. Yeah.
And I was an intern, and Dan was working at SBM Marketing and Communications with me in LaGrange, Illinois. And like I knew him, we were friendly. And then he left shortly afterwards. But I knew he left to go to Google, and I was like, damn, like that's so impressive. And we worked together, figured out that you were married to him. And I knew both of you, which is just like it's just like such a weird small world that I love
The
so
world
much.
is this large.
Yeah, it
It
honestly.
really
And
is.
so Dan is a very talented musician. Shout out to his like success this year. He got like
He finished #1 in Iceland. He was above Taylor Swift in Iceland for one of his songs, which is still kind of an unreal fun fact. I want to like print it and put it on
I
the
think that is
wall.
so fucking cool.
So
And his song, Somebody Else, it was my #1 song on my Spotify Wrapped. I like loved it. So I mean, and that's what's like hit the radio charts. And
yeah.
he's like, so both of you are so incredibly creative, so impressive, and the life you built is so beautiful and rich. And I'm curious, how have you guys figured out, like, especially as someone who's about to have their own family and a partner where we have very drastically different like interests and needs to like honor ourselves and our, our time. How did you guys come to figure that out? Like find your creative balance, how to have your independence and togetherness while raising 3 kids and having tech corporate jobs.
Yeah. You know, I will say the one thing about working at YouTube is that there's a lot of young parents that work there. And so it's not that uncommon for people to have children and also be working. And like I mentioned a little bit before, there's some really, really, really fantastic humans that we work with. And so just leaning on people, being real with people. Again, exposing yourself, there's a little bit of fear there, right? Like Lindsay had kind of said a little earlier, like as soon as you show somebody your cards, like they can use those for you or against you. But at least I'd say most of the time in my career, showing people your cards is a good thing, especially when it comes to you needing help with your kids or something like that. Or,
Fair.
hey, I gotta miss this call. I'm really sorry, but like I gotta be here. My son has, hand, foot, mouth, or whatever the case might be, and that's the reality. So leaning on your community and your community at large, right? It doesn't just have to be, your mom, your dad, or whoever it is that you trust the most. It can be a larger community. And in Pacifica, I think we've both been really blessed as well. It's a smaller town on the coast. And because of that, we've made a lot of friends who have become family. And with that comes, Like, hey, Lindsay, if you're having a late night and that baby kept you up all night, call me. I'll come over here. I'll come hang out in the morning. I'll bring Layla and we'll make a day of it. I haven't snuggled a newborn in a bit. That'd be fun,
Which will be happening.
So, just lean on your community. The other thing is make sure as a parent, it's very easy to get kind of sucked into parent stuff, just like it is with corporate stuff and everything else. And so one of the things that I've found that helps me manage that, and it sounds so unromantic, but I calendar everything. I literally put, like, if you look at my calendar, I have, like, wake up and shower, brush teeth, like, take kids to school, like, Dan performance, Angela on podcast, Dan going to take Tyler to OT, Angela going to be room mom, like, Angela organized for pop-up, and it kind of helps you mentally see all the different stuff that you're doing within your day. And it makes you feel a little less overwhelmed. Because it's like, okay, I've scheduled time for every little thing. And if something comes up, okay, then you can easily look at the calendar and say, what's really not that important? Okay, we're going to trade this out for that. But it makes sure that you're covering all your bases, that you're showing up for your kids, but you're also showing up for yourself.
And you've told me before that, like, it's like, if it's on the calendar, it's Dan. So, like, it's for you and Dan, too. So,
Yeah.
like, whether he's performing at a farmer's market or you have an event to go to, it's like, what have you guys decided, or what's on the calendar first? And then how do you negotiate and compromise?
Yeah.
And I just want to, like, applaud you both, because as a friend standing on the sidelines, watching both of your growth into your creative sides and businesses, and, like, is truly, I think, something, like, to be acknowledged and studied, because I think many people want that. And I think someone always feels like they have to, not always, I feel like often somebody feels like they have to take a back seat. And you guys have somehow, from my perspective, found a way that you both can take turns in the driver's seat.
Yeah, I think that comes from any relationship, right? Like, again, your relationship, like, you have relationships at work, you have relationships with friends, you have relationships with your spouse. And at the end of the day, your relationship with your spouse is a unique one, especially if you're a small business owner or anything like that, because your spouse has to value, and you have kids, especially if you have kids, right? Because the kids, they need things, especially young children. You can't just, like, leave them at home with a bowl of water and some dog food.
Are you sure? Because
it's not gonna end well. So you've got to be able to partner on that, and to partner on that, two things have to be true. One, you have to really, really trust your spouse. And the second thing is your spouse and your values need to be aligned. They need to value what you're doing. You need to value what they are doing. Because if you say, you know what, your music's really not that important to me. What's important to me is my pop-up. That's going to breed all kinds of resentment, right? And you don't want that. And also, it's not true. I think dance music's incredible. I'm just using that as a hypothetical, right? But, your spouse has to value that. And I'm very fortunate that my spouse does. And he gets it because we are both hyper creatives. I mean, he also does woodworking. I also paint and sew and upcycle. I mean,
it's so cool.
We're like weaponized ADD. If it had a name, would be our relationship. But you have to value that, and you have to be able to say to the other person, "I see you. I know how much this means to you. I will take the duty of whatever we need to help support the children." Like, Dan went to Nashville to go record a new music video and some new stuff that's coming out. So I won't.
So cool.
I won't won't let the cat out of the bag. Yeah, I'll let him come on and talk about that. But that meant I had to stay home and solo the kids while also running the business.
Small feat.
Which is no small feat for 3 small children.
Yes.
And, all who go to different schools, all who have different pickup times, all who have very different needs. My second child goes to OT right now just because he's a little hypersensory. And so we're trying to help him navigate that. And so, we've got all this different stuff. And at the end of the day, though, him coming home and being like, we did it, and look at how exciting this is, and look at this, you're a part of your partner's success. And it comes back to that. You don't need to compete with every freaking person. Try to collaborate and see what happens. And it really produces a beautiful thing. And so, yeah, you've got to have a really great amount of trust with your partner. You got to be very real with your partner. You got to be able to express feelings with your partner. And you've got to really make some, and there's tough decisions. I mean, sometimes it doesn't align perfectly. Sometimes it's like, hey, Angela has this amazing opportunity and Dan does too, and it happens to be on the exact same date at the exact same time. And then it's like, all right, rock, paper, scissors. Who's
Who
getting
gets
the
this
thing?
one?
So.
Well, what I hear what you're saying is an immense amount of respect, but I also saw a real clear like through line in your relationship with Dan and what you guys have created and grown and cultivated for your mutual success and what you also are doing in your business, and like you just were saying that you don't have to compete with everybody. Like you can come together and be successful and collaborate. And that's exactly what you're doing with your makers. That's exactly what you're doing with Unpacka. And I just think that's why Angela's like a magnet. Like people are drawn to
Appreciate
her.
that.
I mean, if you're in her orbit, you spend time where you follow her into a room or anywhere, there's always people who know her, are so excited to see her, but then people who want to know you and invest in you and be with you. And just like, she just has this energy and aura. And I just think that's what makes your business so special, because you are almost not, that is being able to be fully embraced and seen, because you're able to allow all these people to come and be a part of what you're doing. And there's no one that you're like, no, you're not welcome here. You're like, no, I'm building a business so that we can all thrive.
Yeah.
And that it's clear that that's present in all parts of your life. And I think that's really admirable, because most people can't achieve that.
I really appreciate that. But I think that comes actually because energy, in my mind, it's not something like you create, something you cultivate. And so when you have people like you and you have really great people, I mean, shout out to, I mean, again, there's so many amazing people I used to work with in corporate too. And when you have a room full of really awesome, talented individuals and you're solving a really shitty problem, it's amazing how positive the conversation is, even though the problem sucks, because everybody's focused on working together. Everyone's focused on like, how is it us against the thing, And it's a really
Mm.
beautiful thing,
Mm-hmm.
because problems are hard.
Mm-hmm.
People don't need to be. And when you make an environment, you surround yourself with amazing and talented makers, creators, people that have talent, and they have issues like, hey, I don't know how to use, I had one friend who she didn't know how to use Google Forms. Like, she's a small maker, she needed to do a sign up because she was having way too many people from an intake perspective, and I was like, hey, let's just make a quick Google form, then you can go through and here's how we would organize it and here's your calendar. And she's like, I am just so overwhelmed by this whole thing, you know but because we were focused on the problem, we were focused on working together, she now has a beautiful intake form. She has a beautiful, and it's just, if you don't allow that type of stuff into your life, you're going to miss out on so many amazing opportunities. And people are so interesting and so talented and so special. And in a day of AI where all they're telling you is get it now, get it now, get it sooner, get it faster, make whatever.
You don't
put
need
it out.
others. You can do it yourself.
Right. Buy. Like,
Mhm.
who wants to talk to people? People are so annoying. It's all about me. And at the end of the day, um, push that away.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, you cannot buy yourself happiness. You cannot buy yourself true community. It's only found by actually sitting and collaborating with real human beings, listening and being a human your freaking self.
Mm.
No one wants to work with a robot. They just don't.
And it almost brings me back to what we talked about at the beginning of like the power of in-person and community and connection. And I think that is like the real, like, you don't have to solve everything on your own. And I think what makes the political climate and so much going on in the world so difficult is when you're getting all of these headlines, you're taking in all this information. I'll speak for myself. I get so overwhelmed because I'm just one person, just feeling that hopelessness of like, there's nothing I can do. But when you step out and you start, even if you're not connected and solving these problems, but you're just connecting with others in the community to make beautiful things happen or collaborate on things or share and help someone's business grow or buy someone a cup of coffee, like you begin to realize, oh, wait, this is actually how it's meant to work. This is how our world is meant to operate and how humanity is meant to operate. And so much is trying to pull us apart, but so much is possible if we just remember to come back together.
Completely. And you can't do it yourself. You can't do it
No,
yourself.
absolutely not.
Unpacka would be an entirely different business without my artists. Like,
Yeah.
Unpacka would be an entirely different business. We donate a certain percentage back to local charity. And it would be a different business if we didn't have our charity partners.
Mhm.
It'd be a different business without Godzilla, which is an app on Shopify that you can add that helps remit those payments. It'd be a different business if, I hadn't gone through all of the corporate life that I went through. That all the corporate stuff I went through has helped me become a better entrepreneur. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm a one-woman show. I was able to build my site myself. I was able to do all my marketing myself. I was able to do all of my design myself. I was able, like, all of it was done by yours truly, with the occasional, "Hey, Dan, what's this?" But all of it was done and managed by me, And the only reason I was able to accomplish that was because all of the amazing people before me that showed me something. It's not because I'm some smart genius human being, although pretty doing pretty good for myself, but it's all because of all the different people that got me here.
Yeah.
And you gotta give appreciation to that. I'm so over this one man show type of deal. Every bit of success you have, yes, you have to do the work for sure. However, you've learned a lot of that from other people around you, and so
Mhm.
making sure that you're always grateful and thankful for that is really important too.
I think that's another great perspective in this time where people are feeling often quite stuck or is like no, like time being spent now isn't wasted. There's something in it for you if you are present to either be able to see it now or be able to look back retrospectively. Like the same thing. There was a lot of times in my corporate time where I was like overly stressed and anxious, and there was a lot of like I'm like, did I stay too long, too
But you know
much?
what? You've done the work though, and I think that's the other thing too, is you also can't just sit there and be like, "Oh, woe is me. This sucks.
Yeah,
I
that's
hate
very
this."
true.
You also have to look internally. You also have to be like, "You know what? I recognize this is not what I need anymore." Or, "You know what? Oh, I realize that something's off."
Hmm.
And I have to be the one to initiate that. Everyone around you is going to tell you no. You have to be the person sometimes to tell yourself yes.
Yeah.
And that's what's gonna drive things forward. You can't just sit and wallow in sorrow. You're gonna go down the depression rabbit hole that frankly many people are down right now because layoffs and AI and everything else. I mean, it just
Yes.
just is what it is. But y- you gotta help turn the corner, whether that's going to a therapist or figuring it out yourself or whatever. By the way, therapists are amazing. Shout out to anyone who's a therapist. You guys are the
God
salt of the earth,
sense.
most wonderful people. But you gotta do the work. You gotta do the work. You gotta turn the corner, and you gotta do that. But you did.
Thank
And
you.
that's why you have such an amazing show, an amazing house, husband. You're going to be an incredible mom.
Thank you.
I'm so excited for this transition for you. I can't wait to hear the solo podcast from Lindsay about parenting. I'm like I'm
Neither
like
can I.
setting my like reminders now. So
Oh God, yeah. Stay tuned for that one on the other side of this all. But thank you. That is really kind, and you're right. Like that it does start by deciding that you want to be an active participant in your current state, whether it's one that in one, especially if it's one that is struggling. Be like, I want like I'm ready to do. We always say the work, but like how I think of that is like ready to dig below the surface and start by acknowledging that things are not just right and I want to make a change and the change has to start, and this is why I focus on the work I do with people, not band-aid this transformation. It has to start with realizing there's some deeper transformation, but also recognizing that like if you're in a job that feels or shitty and your boss is sucking life out of you, like okay, maybe you can't get out of it right now, but also what can you get from it? Like, what is it
exactly.
like? How is this building to your resilience, to your self understanding, to your knowing your needs and what needs to be different, to understanding your values? Like, there's always something to be gleaned from it. Not saying you need to stay in something that is detrimental to you in order to do that. But I have found from myself and from many people, whether in the moment or in time, you realize that everything has served you in some way
Hmm.
and how all your experiences served your business all of mine has served if I did not stay and had all the experiences and advertising and in corporate for as long as I did, I would not be here. So trusting your journey and yourself to know when you need to make a pivot on that journey.
Yeah, the hardest thing to work on is yourself. And looking at feedback and
Yeah.
taking that and being like, what about this is possibly true? And using that to better yourself. Or when you see the leader that you're like, you know what? I never want to be like that person. And realizing what it is about that person that you're like, you know what? Uh, like sometimes the leaders you dislike, it's important to also recognize why, because it's that type of stuff that also teaches you more about your own personal values, what it is that you're aligned with, and how you want to show up for other people when you're in a leadership position, right? And then the leaders that are absolutely wonderful, fantastic, like Christina Wire, shout out to her. She's a fantastic human being. Like the leaders that you admire, what do they do that you admire so much? And like how do they show up? And what is it that you can replicate or
Mm,
learn from that or take from that, right? That's how you build yourself and your brand and your identity.
mm, completely. And it's sometimes hard to see that when there's so much like, I don't know, there's so many people emulating what you don't want, being able to focus on those that are still showing up in the way that makes you proud or inspiring or aligned to you, like
Yeah.
that's what to grasp onto. So, Angela, I'm curious as I start to wrap us when
Yeah.
going into the new year,
Yeah.
what is your like? I don't even know the right question I want to ask here, but like, what is like
Been fun.
your aspiration? What is like, what are you going into the new year hoping to achieve or bring to reality for yourself? And yeah, I'm gonna ask that, and then I have actually one other question I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, I think there's two things. Great question. There's two things. One is that I really am so happy to see my children grow, my husband's side projects grow. My husband and I do one thing every year that I would recommend you do with your partner or spouse. Every year on New Year's Day, we sit down and we make a list of all the dreams we have that we want to accomplish throughout
Mm.
the year. So, like, whether it's a personal goal, a professional goal, something we have with the kids, what trips do we want to go on? And we try to envision what our year could look like. And then from there, we kind of start trying to slot some goals and stuff together.
Oh, that's so
And
cool.
so Dan has a few goals that again I'm not gonna steal his thunder because there's a lot of really good stuff on there. But we have a lot of really amazing things on there for the kids and for him.
How did you do with your goals for 2025?
We crushed them.
Fuck
I
yeah.
I mean, the one goal we had on there was me. I mean, it's hard to remember January, but January of last year, one of the goals on there was figure out what to do with my job. And I didn't know. I didn't know what I was gonna do January of last year, and then it kinda just came to me, and it grew, and then the time was right to leave, and, sometimes the universe has a funny way of
Yeah.
of telling you, to make a jump or do a change or whatever, and Unpack has been doing better than I projected. We are beating our expectations. We are over what we thought we would do in revenue this year, which is fantastic, and, yeah, I'm really hopeful for next year. And it's many thanks to all of you that believed in us and have been supporting us. And shout out to anyone who's listening to this. Lindsay's wearing a jacket from
Yeah, I didn't
Unpacka.
mention I'm wearing my Unpacka.
You know,
It's so it's the best.
so thank you. I mean, that as a small business owner, thank you. And I think that's what I want from next year is we're going to be doing our first commercial next
Oh
year.
my god, so
Yeah,
cool.
so you might see us on YouTube for
Oh my
commercials.
god, that's
We'll see
amazing.
how that goes. It's kind of expensive, so so buy from us so we can do our first commercial. But we're gonna be doing hopefully our first commercial. And then I'm hoping to do a few more tentpole shows. Sip Shop Eat is the biggest show we've done. But I'm hoping to potentially do West Coast and stuff next year. And then with our expansion to Chicago and Seattle, I'm hoping to feature a few more charities, and also a few more artists. And our charities, by the way, are picked based on the communities that the artists live in. So it's not necessarily like a random thing. We try to pick also really small and artist aligned charities too.
One thing that we didn't talk about that like you just kind of touched on with like this year, you're like, it's funny how the inner universe things happen that kind of make you take that leap.
Yeah.
And I think there's something, it's like you set the ambition, what do I do with my job? And I think a little buoy, the universe showed up to like, I feel like the tensions of that 2% for you
Yeah.
of that leadership that was not aligned to you, that pushed you to a place where I felt like I was witnessing you realize that you could no longer turn away from yourself in order to stay in this position, and you had to choose yourself in like very difficult ways,
Yeah.
like very powerful ways, to make the leap into just and finally cut the ties and leave.
Yeah.
And so I just think it's
I know, in a way, you almost have to say thank you to the 2%,
yeah.
right? I mean, you really do,
Yeah,
because
that's raise a glass.
I mean, I wish it would have been a different way to go about it, but sometimes you just have to say to yourself, I this served me. I learned a lot,
Hmm.
but I already learned the purpose of what this was. Is it time to maybe learn the purpose of something else? And when you have a spouse too that's like, look, I think this we should figure this out, you know, y- it really listen to that. Listen to that little itch, nudge, whatever it is, and start really again, Dream a lot about what it is that you really want. Your dreams they're telling you where life should take you. Your dreams are something that you y- th- so tap in, tune in, like reach out and dream.
And that's like I'm so happy you brought that back up, because you have to create the space for that. And that's
Yeah.
something that we don't do between the craziness of work and always there's so much noise everywhere. We have to create the silence and the space. My brother talked a lot about this in our conversation, which I highly recommend listening to be able to know, what do you actually need? What do you require? What do you dream? How are you ensuring that you are moving towards a life that honors what you actually want and need and dream about now, not what you 5-10 years ago did, maybe based on what you wanted or based on what society or somebody else was telling you that you wanted. So you have to pause and create the silence and the space enough to be able to actually hear it.
Yep.
And that happened for me. It wasn't until I hit my rock bottom burnout and took my sabbatical where I created that type of space to be like, okay, and then went back into the noise and had like the reality hit of like, oh, yep,
Yep.
this is real for me. So if you take one thing into the new year is or as you're moving through the 2026, like,
Yeah.
what does it look like and mean for you and all of us included, to continue to do it, like to create space and capacity to actually hear your dreams and wishes and what's tugging at you that it's too easy to ignore.
Yeah, again, doing that little exercise even of just sitting down and being like, what do I want out of the year? Again, we talked about incremental steps, right? And this is a good way to do incremental steps, is what do I want out of my year? And when you really sit there with yourself, possibly a glass of wine if you partake, and you really like try to envision the next time you're sitting next to your fireplace and the next time you're having this conversation with yourself, what do you want to be saying?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a really, really powerful thing, and it's interesting what comes to your mind first, always. It's interesting what comes to your mind next, and it's not that it's a right or wrong thing, but it does help you order how your brain is even currently thinking about all the different things you have going on. And again, dreaming is very, very powerful. But if you don't put goals next to it, if you don't show up, if you don't do the work, if you don't find your community and really get surrounded with people that support you, you're just going to keep dreaming. What really brings it to action is saying, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to go try it. And you'll be amazed at when you put your mind to something and you say, you know what? Let's go for it. How much of it becomes a reality? You can manifest all kinds of things if you just say, you know what? I'm going to stop bullshitting myself and I'm going to go do it.
And choosing to choose ourselves.
And choosing to choose ourselves and choosing to choose our partners
Yeah.
and our families and going back from, like the world's not chasing you. You got to get out there and you got to learn to love yourself and love what you do and
Yeah.
be honest and show people who you are, because at the end of the day, somebody's looking for you and they're looking for the real you because they're looking for their community too. And you'll find your weirdos. You'll stand in a parking lot on a Saturday with a bunch of really weird people selling a lot of used clothes. And you know what? It's a great freaking time. And you're all drinking tea and kava and everything else. And you know what? It's amazing. It's amazing. It's really, really something special. And you come home and you're so energized and you're so excited and you're so happy and you feel so valued. And it's a really beautiful thing.
Thank you for that, Angela. And I think that's a beautiful place to end it.
Okay.
And I just want to, because there's been so many gems that have been sprinkled from, you'd say, from your experience from corporate to your business to your partnership. And I think this is just the right conversation to hopefully light someone's spark.
I hope so.
And give the nudge to choose themselves and to dream. So thank you. Boob cheers.
Boob cheers.
Thank you all for tuning in. And Angela, thank you for getting Unfiltered today.
Oh my God, thank you for having me. Lindsay's an amazing host.
Bye now.